My Burbank Talks presents another edition of Ask the Mayor, a monthly forum giving the Mayor of Burbank an opportunity to answer questions from you, the listener, and address issues important to the city of Burbank. Now, let's join our hosts as they welcome the Mayor of Burbank.
Hello, Burbank. Craig Stewart here once again, along, of course, with Ross Benson.
Good morning, good afternoon, and look at the mayor. We have the mayor here.
Well, yeah, we can't have an Ask the Mayor show, of course, without the mayor. So let's welcome Mayor Nikki Perez.
Hi, how are you both doing on this warm and sunny day?
Well, I got a question already right off the top. You're glowing. You'd think you're pregnant or something. Your makeup. How did she get a half an hour in makeup and I get 30 seconds? I don't get it.
I have to talk to our makeup person.
Oh, okay.
Ross,
Great, Mayor.
you call it pregnancy glow. I call it sweat, but to each their own.
Well, as yesterday, you're probably out in the sun a little bit. We had our Memorial Day celebration over in Cambridge. And give us your thoughts on it.
Well, I got to tell you, the only bummer was we didn't get to do the flyover because it was very, very cloudy when we got there. Of course, bright and sunny by the end of the ceremony. But everything else, our Veterans Committee planned a flawless event as they do every year. They had lovely singers. The young man from Burroughs who sang the national anthem was amazing.
Came from a good school.
Came from a great school. And of course, they had always those renditions with the guitar. They're so emotional. They always get me. And it was very nice to have my year as mayor to share my thoughts with the community. And I was really grateful that I got to share my father-in-law's words. He feels very strongly that we have Veterans Day and we have Memorials Day and we have Armed Services Day. And each one has their own special meaning for folks who are currently serving, folks who have served, and folks who gave the ultimate sacrifice. So it was
the whole situation out there, the American flag that was huge hanging from the fire truck as a background, the roses, the ceremony of the rose, where each person that has not come home literally was acknowledged and a rose was put on the, monuments and so forth. That is always very, very touching. And it was just in community band playing all the different, the songs and so forth. It was really good.
It was years ago that we actually redid that entire thing. It used to just be run down, and we put things together, and it's a beautiful place now. It's really a fantastic, place to honor people.
The Rose Garden. In fact, Channel 5 News at 10 o'clock did their a piece from there. Even everybody was gone. Most people were home asleep, but they came out there and they did their wrap-up show. And the Rose Garden. Mickey DiPaolo, who is, takes care of the vets and is a Vietnam vet, and even mentioned how the DIG program came out in May to help fluff up and make everything look, and it really did look pretty. I mean,
and for all our residents out there, if you don't know about the DIG program, I have to do a shameless plug for them because they're wonderful. DIG is something that everybody can volunteer with. If you're here in Burbank, even if you're outside of Burbank, we'd have groups come in and help us out. They really have dig days where you can go on a Saturday morning, you can pull out some weeds, you can help us replant. It's a very nice and calming experience. I had the chance to participate a couple of times. It's very cathartic. You really, pulling out weeds from the park makes you feel good, and then you see the efforts of your works. And having them come out to the Rose Garden was really nice for us.
Well, funny side story. We kept always seeing that, we talk about that. DIG, it was always capital DIG. You're saying, what does DIG stand for? They always capitalize the letters. It just means dig.
Now, Mayor, I have a question. Many, when I had hair, I think, Burbank had a CETA program. It was, they'd employ high school students to go out and do gardening projects or paint light poles and so forth. I noticed in Magnolia Park and driving down San Fernando yesterday, the weeds are getting kind of high, and I know we cannot use any type of weed killers and so forth, but is that something that the DIG program could maybe start at Victory and work their way west and pull the weeds out of? Because some of them are
getting... It is very true. There's a couple businesses, especially between Victory and Buena Vista, where the weeds are probably 5-6 feet high in the parkway. I'm going, how does Burbank let that happen?
Yeah, I know we don't have forestry crew to do that, and it's time consuming, but that's what the dig program. Wonder if that could be put in there. Along, because you can't use the weed killer, you can't use weed whackers, but maybe something that we could do to beautify our business district.
It's definitely getting hard to manage. I'm glad you brought up the point about the weed killer, because that's getting very in the weeds, but I had to.
Wait a second, I gotta.
But the reality is the state banned a certain weed killer that we use that was very effective, and then they did so for good reason, the chemicals in it. But then we also have the issue that with the weed killer that is supposedly safe, some of our forestry guys are allergic to it. It's causing rashes. So we're, kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And for folks who wonder about forestry, I'm still in awe of them, because there's only about 7 of them, and they handled all of the debris and everything from the thunderstorm. So
don't you have one of your players that used to be a player for you? Part of our forestry crew. I see him out there every time. He says, how's Coach Sherwood doing?
Well, they've had many players, he's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
He's not ready to retire. In fact, yeah, he's not ready to retire. In fact, he's been doing it.
Well, I've seen him.
All right, he's going to be a 30-year guy.
Oh, yeah, and I've seen him out there at 3-4 in the morning when they call them out. I've seen him out there.
He's the leader. He's the team leader. So.
Yeah, he is. And our forestry crew, again, the Rose Garden was a good example of how gorgeous it was. If you get out into our parks, that's a lot of grass to mow. That is a lot of, besides just the grass, the care and everything that goes into it. Okay. They do a good job.
And I'll bring up the question about dig to our parks department, because I think the answer in the past, because I've thought about it too, believe me, on some of my morning runs, I noticed that me and the weeds are kind of getting crushed. And I've thought about like, what about this right of way? Why can't we clear? And I've thought about dig in the past. The answer I've gotten in the past is that we have so much already on our hands with the parks. And I have seen that firsthand, like having done a couple of dig days pre-pregnancy. You're not supposed to garden while pregnant. But I've just heard that it's too much to get to. So we're looking for other solutions.
Well, on Magnolia, it actually looks like, it's not good at all. So hopefully they'll get.
I remember that program. We're going back many years. I think I know a couple of firemen, Jess Telemontes, who started in that program, and then he became a fireman. And we're talking 35, 40 years ago.
And it's had different iterations, because I remember when I was in high school, it had a different name. I can't recall what it was, but it was like everybody knew it as, oh, that's the folks who sign up to clean brush in the summers.
Right. Yeah. So, but back to Memorial Day, it was a great 2 hours. I think we had started at right at 11, and we were out of there 12:30, 1 o'clock. I know a ton of people went over to the VFW for a great picnic. They had put on a heck of a barbecue. I didn't make it. But the committee, it's not just Mickey. There's a committee of a dozen or more that are part of our Memorial Day and Veterans Day ceremonies. And they really do. As Craig would remind me, Memorial Day is to remember those who didn't come home.
That's right. And Veterans Day, the ones who are still or have served.
There you go.
Yes. And then the last thing I'll say about the Memorial Day ceremony, I think it's really nice because it's one of our few solemn holidays, and I think the crowd that was there really understood that. The Veterans Committee for sure understands that, and it's nice for me to see them because they don't get enough credit. They do both of these events, but they're also really a resource for veterans. I've gone to Mickey when I have questions about, hey, I have a veteran who's asking about this and this, where can I send them, or who can I send them to? And every time he says, send them to me.
I just, the other day on social media, a lot of people say I commented, somebody had come on and asked, they know a vet that has been talking suicide, here in Burbank. And I said, First Family Service Agency, that phone is available 24 hours, or get a hold of Mickey DiPaolo. He will make sure you are taken care of and whatever they need. They have some programs over at Family Service Agency for our military. Great place. And it's tough. You go and serve, and what you get to see, when you're serving, and so it affects.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let's move. We got a long topics today. Let's move on. But it was a great ceremony, absolutely, yesterday. The budget. That's been a huge thing for a couple of months now.
The toilet flushing or something.
Of course, for you.
There's the budget. There's
The budget. Okay. So yeah, the budget is something every year. It's that beast every year you have to tackle, and finally come to a final vote on June 3rd. So I know there's some things you really can't talk about because the vote has not happened yet. But kind of, my question is, what's the hardest part of doing the budget? Of coming together with everyone. What for you is the hardest part as you're doing the process?
spending money.
We gotta spend money. That's what we do. But what is it? You gotta spend money to make money.
Yeah.
But I think for me, in the way I've described it to most folks, without getting too much into it, because like Craig shared, we're still, it's not final. We vote on June 3rd, and anybody who's interested, please tune into that meeting. The reality here is, the way I look at it in a very crude way, is Burbank has always been incredibly fiscally responsible. We have done our homework. We are the kid in the group project that did our homework. And everywhere I look outside, I feel like we're the only kid that did the assignment, and it's really a group project.
Well, yeah, years ago, a lot of cities had problems with the pensions, and cities went bankrupt. Counties went bankrupt. But Burbank always held their head above water. So Burbank has a history of being, of doing their homework.
And you don't have to look too far. I mean, look at the county budget. City of LA has a massive deficit. Look at our state budget. And don't even get me started on our federal budget.
But they print money. They just make more money.
But they cut out the pennies, literally. But
save your pennies. They might be worth something later.
Exactly. I will say our financial department, I know several people that work there, and Madam Becker, who is our department head, she knows our budget. You could ask her at any given time. She could almost tell you what page of our city budget she keeps. It's not only her, she's the keeper of all that, but also every department head is responsible. And if you really look at our budget, like you said, it's amazing. Other cities are going bankrupt, and you look at Burbank, and all those things still work.
I have to say, I think the number one thing is we are not in a budget deficit. Burbank is not in a budget deficit. We have a surplus, which is huge. Most of our neighbors can't say that. And we have had that budget surplus during COVID, during this time as we head into a literal recession, because that's where we're headed as a country and as a state. That's where we're headed. But as a city, we have kept our head up above water, and it's because of the very, very responsible financial decisions, which are sometimes really hard votes to take and really hard things to do to save money.
That potential recession, which we're all, who knows what the coins will land one day or another on tariffs. Are you taking that into account, that we may be heading to a recession, and how to save for that? Or is that part of the process?
So I think the biggest or the most common thing you heard in our budget discussions, which our first one was, I forgot what day in May, but we started early May. Then we had the May 20th meeting, which we just had, and our last one is June 3rd. But our entire discussion has centered around economic uncertainty. And that's where I say I feel like we're the kid that did our homework, right? We did the assignment, we turned it in, we were really responsible, but some of those county dollars are in question. Those state dollars have been cut back, and those federal dollars are still hanging on the balance. And, for us as a city, it's really hard to have 6 million ? That we may not get from the feds, or 2 million that we for sure will not get from the state. And where do we pull from? So I think on the one hand, we're really lucky that we've been economically stable because we can fill some of the gaps. On the other hand, we also want to make sure that we don't completely use all of our rainy day funds or all of our budget, because we want to save for what will be a recession. And we want our city, our small businesses, and our residents to feel recession proof, And I think right now we have 1 million in recurring funds. That's what it looks like in projection. $1 million of recurring funds, and we have about 21 million of unrecurring funds in the general budget, which is really good. That means we've done our job to bring in the money this year. It's not recurring, but that's why we keep our eyes on that 1 million. And the only thing I will say is if you look at our budget white papers and the things that we're looking to spend money on, we have been very conservative about how much it is. Nothing in our council asks, I believe, has gone over, nothing has gone over the $100,000 mark from our council asks, is the 5 of us. And I think that's been because we've been very thoughtful about what does a community need right now, and they need a steady hand to save. And then the other piece that I see is us putting money towards things that we've had on our council goals. Housing and homelessness, we're trying to fill some gaps that we're not going to get grants for. A great example is the Jobs Connect program. That's on the table right now. And council proposed, again, it's not voted on yet, but council proposed filling that gap. It's about $87,000. That program has been helpful to so many people, especially during this economic time where they switch careers, look at different paths. That's been really important for folks. And we heard the community. We had hundreds of emails about that program. And so those are smart things that we can invest in, while maybe it's not the time to spend, $500,000 on some economic study. We've thought about what we do at this time. And I think, it was no surprise to me, but I also thought as a sign of good leadership. When I sat there, I knew that Justin had said, we don't want to spend over that million because that's our recurring. We don't want to spend that on asks.
They just said today, the president just said today that he's going to cut all the funding to California because of a transgender athlete participating in a sport. So if they cut all the funding, then that means Sacramento's not sending money down here either. So you're going to have to prepare for those kind of things.
And that's where I'm saying it really feels like we're the kid doing our homework. And it's really hard to have a president saying things like that offhandedly. I have to sit there, hold my breath, and wait to see what actually comes out on paper. And if you're interested, one of the budget white papers I did ask Jennifer for, and she was wonderful about this, is the Conference of Mayors, of U.S. mayors, is tracking all of this. And it doesn't matter what political party you're in, nonpartisan, doesn't matter. All of the mayors from the different cities across the nations are part of that Conference of Mayors, and they are just dollar tracking each thing that could be impacted. So HUD department dollars, which are going to Section 8 funding, CDBG, which are the Community Development Block Grant funding, which goes to anything from your parks to some nonprofit activities. All of that has been put on the table as a question mark in this budget, and they have tracked dollar by dollar how much cities could lose. And so I gave that list to Jennifer, and I asked her to asterisk and make a note of where we as a city could be impacted. Good and the bad. On the bad side, again, those are community dollars. We're not talking about, not getting dollars because of some political opinion. We're talking about literally Section 8. That's not, that's money that's been on the table forever. Community Development Block Grant, it's been on the table forever, and we use it for so many things, from roads to playgrounds, which roads and playgrounds don't have parties. And then, and so that's the bad part, that we would lose those kind of dollars. That's on the table. That's a possibility.
That's happened once before. We lost all our redevelopment money.
And we've seen what that looks like.
Yeah, that costs a lot of money.
But when you talk about that budget, you also had a report from Ken Berkman saying our roads and our sidewalks and our alleys are looking the best that they have in many years.
And that's where comes in the fact that we've been doing our homework. We've been doing a good job. And so on the one hand, I would take a look. I forget what number in the budget papers it is, but you can look at the actual entire budget. It's towards the back. It's our budget white papers, and those are proposed solutions. They just included it as a memo. I didn't ask for any dollar items there. I just wanted the public, who asks a lot about this, and rightfully so. People are asking, how are the federal cuts affecting the city? So the bad news is those are some pretty important programs that could be affected. The good news is, in comparison to a lot of our counterparts or other cities, we don't actually use a lot of federal dollars. and would not be as severely impacted as some folks. So that's a really good thing for our residents to know for peace of mind. And I can talk later about how it affects us in other areas, but that's been the hardest part with the budget. To your point, Craig, about what's hard, it's the economic uncertainty. It's not knowing how deep of a recession we're going into. It's not knowing whether or not some federal grants are coming in, whether or not some state grants are coming in. That's been the hardest part. And I think you also asked me, like, what would I love to see? I think just for the future, one of my biggest things was I knew during my mayorship, I did not want to be in an economic deficit, right. For the city. So keeping a balanced budget has been one of the most important things. And I'm really grateful to my colleagues that when it came time to propose ideas, look, in past years, all of us have thrown like $100,000 ideas down, the pipeline just to see what might work or what might sound good. I will say people were very good about saying, this is not the time. We need to sit down and figure out the economic situation first and get through this next year. And so I do appreciate that.
Well, I know one of the, Craig, will be the fire department, for example. They had done a project, a test of that extra rescue ambulance between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And that they found they're going to, as of July, I hear it'll take a little longer, but they will now man that as a 24-hour rescue ambulance. Driving here, Verdugo at least 4 to 5 times said any Burbank RA available. The calls are going up. We're building Front Street, the project out by the airport. All these different things will cause more calls to go up, but you guys are thinking about it before they're occupied.
Exactly.
To man the equipment that's needed. And I think that's...
Police and Fire Service Day, we talked to, on our deputy chiefs and said, we got a lot more people coming to the city, especially our housing we have to do. Do we need another fire station or two? And he said, yeah, we're already thinking about it. It's already being projected. We're already, in the process. So it sounds like people are, already thinking about that stuff.
And that's what I appreciate about fire, police, Burbank Water and Power. They're already thinking about those things, like Ross said, before we get there, because we can't think about it after. We have to be proactive about this. And the reality is the buildings are coming. It's up to us to decide how we do it and how we manage these things responsibly.
Well, let's move on. And we're talking about budget, but let's talk about another thing that is not really budget, but affects a lot of people. And I'm sure you're getting a lot of questions about it. The council is, because now for the last couple of years, we keep getting Burbank Water and Power rate increases. I think a new one is coming on August 1st, I believe. And there's reasons for this. I don't think a lot of people agree with the reasons, but the reasons are kind of, black and white. So you want to kind of get into what's coming on with the rate increases and what the thinking is behind them?
Well, I just want to interject real quick. People don't bring this stuff up when other cities, a windstorm comes along or a rainstorm and they're without power for 4 or 5 days. It doesn't happen here.
Well,
wonder why.
Not only that, but I think overall, our rates are some of the lowest in all of LA County as it is.
Man, y'all have my talking points, because those are two things that I really want to highlight. And I think the first things first, I want folks to know exactly what to expect. So effective July 1st, 2025, sewer and refuse are going up. So sewer is increasing by 6% and refuse is by 8%. If you want to talk in depth about what that means on your bill, please do reach out and call the city or reach out to talk to me, because I've had conversations with folks where, folks are like, oh my God, that sounds like a lot. But then when we get down to the nitty gritty and calculate what that actually looks like for them, there's ways to save. It can be a few dollars. And I don't say that to be like, oh, it's just a few dollars. It's not. It's still a cost.
They raised that last year also?
Sewer and refuse, yes. But this one is something that we had planned to do for a couple of years. So both of the waste plans and the utility, the water and power plans, that has been a long time coming. The council that I started with, my first year on council, we decided to begin the rate hikes because We hadn't for years. In my entire lifetime, we did not get rate hikes in Burbank. And that sounds nice, but people have to think, what's happening then? Things are not free.
Yeah.
That just means that we were creating a balloon.
That can you there, Mayor?
No, and I have to be really grateful to our new general manager of Burbank Water and Power, who has very openly said that she is not going to be the manager to kick the can down the road.
How many city employees or department managers will give out their personal cell phone and tell people, I will take your call to explain it to you? I mean, she has said it from the dais. She says it. She's gone out on these coffee times that My Burbank has promoted.
Heck, I even have it here in my notes straight from her.
Yep. She is there to answer your questions. And it's just, I think, great.
And I'll try to do some of her explanations justice, but oh my gosh, I wish I could speak water and power the way she does. Thanks to her, I've learned a lot more. But I can explain some of the issues, and then at the end, I do want to share her number, because if folks have detailed questions, they can call her. And water and power are things that, for the most part, require either a business degree or an engineering degree to talk about.
Absolutely.
Or some kind of science degree in the water department. Boy, Mandeep will explain it to you as if you have that degree and you leave with an understanding.
She
it is phenomenal.
One sharp engineer.
Yes.
When you guys hired her, she came in and she was ready to go. And she just, changing that department, I mean, Mandeep is a great person.
And speaking of water, those were your sewer and refuse rates. Those are for your trash and your sewage. But the actual water and power rate increases, we made a very calculated decision because we think the worst time to increase rates is the summer. That's when you're using your AC. That's when you're using water the most. We're all trying to keep cool somehow. So those rate increases do not go into effect until January 1st of 2026.
I did not know that. Very good. That's very, very good thing. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really taking consideration. You're right. The worst months of the year, August through November, it's 100 degrees every day usually.
It's an awful time to do it. And, electric rates will increase by 9.9% and water is going up 14%. And if we didn't do it now, it would be 20 to 40% in the next few years, which is why we want to make the tough decisions now. That's what people elected us to do, not kick the can down the road.
And I don't think most people understand. We don't own the water. We buy our water.
We have no water rights at all.
Exactly. Craig and I, you've gone on that trip up to the Colorado River and see.
And when it rains here, we can't get any of that rainwater. We can't.
Right.
We just watch it go right down the LA rivers. Say goodbye, rainwater.
So that really is, if you think about it, raising, it's what we're getting charged.
And when we talk about that, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ross, because again, we have no water rights and we buy all our water from MWD, the Metropolitan Water District. And they have a need right now to rebuild their depleted reserves. They went down from 80 million in 2018 to 30 million in 2023, and they're still collecting, funds. And that's due to not raising those rates. So one thing we're doing is raising our rates to match what they're charging us because our costs have gone up with them too. I always like to remind folks, Burbank Water and Power is a publicly owned utility. You own the utility. We all own the utility. And as such, it's really not generating profit. The goal here is to pay for what we're using and pay for the things that keep our water and power running. And a lot of times folks will ask, what are the increases due? Are folks getting salary increases? Is that what it is? It's not. I think, salaries that make up actually about 15% of water and power's budget. And this rate increase is not leading to any of that. It's due to really 6 main causes. The first one is very clear in plain sight, those thunderstorms and the damage from the storms. We had a lot of our poles are old. A lot of them went out. If you were out and about in the public in January, you might have seen a bucket truck holding up a pole.
Yeah, literally
On Victory.
on Victory.
A really famous one. I always like to tell people, you remember where Marty McFly flew out of the Burger King holding onto the truck? That pole right there was being held by a bucket truck.
It was.
And then, that kind of work from our staff to keep us running costs us a lot. We had a lot of damage. The Starlight Bowl is a great example of that. That's a great example that we see. Some examples that we don't see are those poles, the lines that were damaged. We actually had more down power lines than I've ever seen in past storms. We actually reached the point where that's why we're telling folks to call a certain line for trees, a certain line for pole damage, and then a last 911 line for down power lines, because that's how pressing the issue was. And that's a huge major contributor to the increase in cost. The second major contributor is construction. We are constructing a lot, and I'm going to be really blunt. It's because of unfunded state mandates for water, power, and sustainability. The state is asking us to do a lot of things, and I think it's not any legislator in particular. It's not the governor in particular. The state has always had a dance with its municipalities where they think it's a great idea for the entire state of California to do something like, we want to go sustainable. We want to go green. Cities, you need to do this. That is rarely matched with, we're going to give you money to do this, right? And it's been the long-standing argument from cities up to states. You're telling us to do things, you're not giving us money to do things. And that couldn't be more true for water and power. We have quite a few unfunded state mandates, some that we have already submitted. Mandeep will tell you, we've submitted papers and we've submitted pleas to not have to reach certain goals because they're just too expensive for us and they would be too much of a burden on our constituency. And, right now, because of those budget problems or because of those mandate problems, we're seeing things that are just unattainable. And that's why we're looking for other solutions like the battery storage that we've started putting in. We do solar. We have taken an approach as a utility where we're doing a little bit of everything so that we have our foot in every kind of sustainable market. So that if one of them does really well, we can hold on to that when we're ready, which is something we didn't do years ago. We're one of the last utilities to get into solar. And that's not on this council, not on anybody who's currently working at the utility. It's on our predecessors, and we're trying to learn from maybe some of their sidesteps. Now,
I will say that, and I agree with you. Mandeep even said she's going to Washington all the time.
I've been with her.
You have.
We do not stop. There are no breaks in Washington.
And she goes there to try to negotiate.
Yeah.
And really, so much. She goes with a team that knows what they're talking about, and they're not sitting in their offices back at Burbank thinking how we can, do this crossword puzzle. It's you guys are traveling. You guys are talking to your counterparts. And like you say, the rates here, people call your friends in other cities and ask them, what's your water and power bill? And last time your power was out, how long was that out?
And we're part of the American Public Power Association. Our city is a member. I'm really proud to be that representative from our council. So I get to go to Washington and advocate for our money. And I'm lucky to say we do have a budget ask from Congressman Friedman that was put in the budget. We'll see how it goes. That's not done yet in Washington, but that is our ask was for a portion of funding that's going to go towards our reservoir, which was going to be my next point of why our rates are going up. The third thing is the capital improvement projects that were not done years ago. And I think this one's a very hitting point for our constituency, because when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, it made me mad as a resident, right? Before any of us were on the council, before Mandeep, before anybody working there, we have our water reservoir that has been leaking just a little bit every year. And now
is that the one at Brace Park, or is it the one above Orange Grove?
I believe it's the Orange Grove one. Okay. It's the bigger one. Sorry. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's our main reservoir. It's 2 million gallons of water. That's its storage. Instead, it's currently holding 1.2 million gallons of water. So we're losing almost half of our water because we've had a leak that we haven't fixed for years. At the beginning it was, oh, we're losing some water, but you kick the can down the road and you don't get that project done. And that project was, and I may get the numbers off, Mandeep has as much better numbers, but it was something like a $20 million project when we were first looking at it. It's now a $60 million project because of many, many factors. And so we need to reach this point where we can't say anymore of, oh, we'll do it later. We got to do it now, because let's be real, in 3 years, that's going to be a $70-80 million project. We got to get these things done.
Absolutely.
Because we got to save our water for us here. And then the last thing is, and I know you've both alluded to this, well, not the last thing, second to last thing, is the long history of no rate increases. We haven't raised those rates in so long. And for folks who maybe sit here, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, you sit here, you look in your Burbank bubble, you think things are happening here. I can tell you from being on the calls, every other Friday, we have a call with the American Public Powers Association. And so I tune in to call with mayors, with water and power directors, with folks who sit on metropolitan water boards and across the nation. We're talking folks from Burbank, folks from Kentucky, folks from New York. And all these conversations are the same. Everybody's raising their rates because it's just unaffordable now. This is a nationwide issue. And the capital improvement costs are also nationwide issues. I heard from folks in New York that they're also building something that has gone up 200% in cost. And they're looking for ways to do that. And those are the state folks, right? So this is a problem across the board. And we're trying to address it now before it gets much more costly and before we have to turn to residents and say, it's a 40% increase. I never want to turn to people and say that. So I'd rather take these rates now and fix our problems here in Burbank and continue to be the kid that does the work in the class.
The federal government, they're hot and cold. You just don't know where they're going to go on some of these things. These are necessities.
I mean, it's really hard. One of the things we went to fight for, and I think I mentioned this in the last show, one of the things we went to really, really push hard for in Washington was our tax-exempt municipal bonds. It's really important for us that those municipal bonds stay exempt from taxes. That, for Burbank alone, that can mean a $6 million difference. And that is, again, not a partisan issue. We in the APPA, you have mayors from all kinds of cities, all places. We may disagree on a lot of things. Everyone agrees that those bonds need to stay tax exempt to keep our utilities running and to not pass those $6 million in the case of Burbank onto our residents. So it's really hard to be fighting for that and to find things that as Americans we all agree on the ground floor and then take it to the federal government and kind of hear crickets. That's really hard for us. But I will say the last reason, and speaking of the feds, is tariffs. That's the last, reason for these increases. Those are 6 reasons why. But I also have to say, on the other side, what you're paying for is really the best reliability in the nation. We have, I have to be honest, we have the strongest reliability on water. We have the second strongest reliability on power in the nation. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
And we sometimes take that for granted. I feel like I've had moments where I'm like, Mandeep, my power was out for 2 hours. When I know for folks who handled the storms in other cities, that was days.
If people are curious, every month when the Water and Power Board meets, their minutes are public information, and anybody can go online and see literally when there's a power outage, what it's caused by, if it's equipment failure, if it's a Mylar balloon, all those different things. And I'll tell you, our downtime is minimal. If you have power out, they know it that fast. The SCADA center out there by the fire department training center, they can tell you when you turn on your TV almost. Years ago, they used to, during the Super Bowl, they could tell how many people flush their toilets.
They knew it was halftime.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. By the amount of water and power that people would use. It's funny.
And if you call our customer service line and you have questions about this stuff, look, I know I did. I called them because I was very sure that My husband has a few computers at home, and he loves setting up his almost game-like system. And I knew that's why our power was high. And I called, and the folks at BWP backed me up on that one. So you can find out what it is, what you can do to really save some power. And without joking, there are real things that you can do, like changing out your light bulbs, changing out your water fixtures. And we have a lot of those things available for free at BWP. If you go over to the customer service desk, they will help you with all of these things to help you make your house more reliable in that sense.
And making it more efficient, you think about somebody that owns tons of apartments in the city, Burcal Management, they've gone in and changed their shower heads, their light bulbs in their places, their water faucets. And in the long run, when you have that many renters and you can save that much, they've also done that at the mall with efficiency. So it's not taking as much. People don't understand. You could call the Department of Water and Power. They will send somebody out for you, scheduled. It's an outside contractor, I believe, and tell you in your own house how you can save from weather stripping around windows so your air conditioner is more effective. Yes. If you're flushing your toilet and it's taking too much water, what you can do, all those things, and it's free. All free.
It's unbelievable. I mean, most recently, I'm a renter, like folks know. My landlord and I were good friends. We talk about all of this stuff, and he knows the hikes are coming. And we actually had the conversation where I was like, well, listen, I can call Burbank Water and Power. I can connect you. And for all the renters out there, Burbank Water and Power has a great template letter that you can send to your landlord where you can explain, hey, these are some of the rebates here. These are some of the programs if you're interested. I've heard some good things come from the letter and from those conversations because they want to save money too. And there are things that you can do as a tenant. I mean, look, I changed my own shower head. I changed a few of the faucet rings to add the water efficient saving ones. And it was very much appreciated by our landlord. And then there are things that I can't do, right? Like some of the metering things and some of the outside sprinklers. But I did share with him, this is where you can go. This is who can help you. And he was incredibly grateful. And on the commercial side, I will say that program is on pause right now, but it's coming back. We do all of this through SCAPA, which is it's a Southern California, Powers Association that we're also a member of. And they have a program where they'll send out somebody to commercial establishments. So if you're a coffee shop, if you're a business owner here in the city, you can also have this done. They'll check your light fixtures. They'll check all these kind of things. It's on a wait list right now. It's coming back for sure. We're just renegotiating the price for the state.
Well, before we get off of Water and Power totally, I know you made it a very important point, and it was said many times, if people are worried with the studios being slow right now, if you work at a store and they're cut your hours, but these rates are going up, if you cannot pay your bill, if you need help, the Water and Power has several programs that they have available that they're not coming out to knock on your door and turning your power off tomorrow. They will work with you. And I've used a couple of their programs. If you're a senior citizen, there's programs that they offer that you don't need to worry about your power being cut off and so forth. They really want to take care of you.
Yeah, and I just have the number right here. You can give folks a call at 818-238-3572. And we will work for you. We do have several low-income programs under the BUS program. We have grants we know of. We have ways to help folks save, because the last thing we want to do is turn off people's power. We just want people to be able to pay their bill. And many times it's enrolling in the program. Many times it's changing your appliances, And the last two things I will say is also Mandeep is incredibly open to talking to folks. Mandeep Samra is our general manager for Burbank Water and Power, who explains these issues like no other. I think at the end of all the coffee chats, people left, if not happy about it, at least understanding why these rate increases were coming. And she's available at 818-967-1997.
That is her cell phone, I can tell you. You know, and think about it. Their team, Three Sisters Coffee. She had a coffee there. Romance in the Bean. She had coffee there. She'll go out wherever you want to meet to figure this out. Her team will be out there. And that was very, very helpful. I don't ever recall in all my years of living in Burbank, any other general manager leaving their office to go out and go face to face.
And they've been really helpful. Those chats have been really helpful because, you know, to our credit again, Burbank, I always think is a high information community. We're not asking, why is my rate going up? We're asking why. Well, there was a woman who came to city council the other day and I loved her questions. She actually asked specifically about why Burbank is in a 50-year contract with one of our larger utilities and why specifically we're not looking at the second part of her question. She asked very specific pieces about why we're not going with a different provider. And Mandeep answered most of her question on the spot, but she also said, call me. And I think those are the folks who really, if you're looking at these rate increases and you're like, I just don't understand why this percentage or what portion of this is going to capital improvements versus this, she will tell you, and it'll be in a very understandable way because believe me, I have had the questions. Very last thing I will say on this is because I want folks to understand that, look, I get the financial strain. Unlike some of the folks in Washington or Sacramento, your city council lives and breathes in the community and will be directly impacted by the decisions we make. You know, I think if we look at taxes, it's very easy for legislators to talk about that on a broad sense, or Medicaid. Very easy for some of those folks to talk about that because they have lovely government health care. When it comes to the decisions we're making here, I also get the rate increase. And some of us on council, like I can tell you, I make right above minimum wage right now. It's going to impact my family a lot, especially with a little one on the way. And so it's not a decision I'm making lightly. My family, my parents work in the entertainment industry, not doing so hot. It's not a decision we make lightly. And I know it's going to hit all of our wallets. There are ways to, you know, help you if it's really hitting your wallet to a degree you can't handle. But please know that it's not something that we wouldn't decide to do unless it was absolutely necessary. And unless looking at the budget, I thought there was no way to avoid. Because right now where I look at it, I think I have, you know, a hard decision and a much harder decision. And the hard vote is to say, we're going to vote to raise rates. People are going to be upset and it's going to hurt our wallets this much. The harder decision and the worst choice would have been to say, oh, I don't want to raise rates because it's going to make me look bad. Let the next council person handle that in 2 years down the road.
Buckets.
And let's let our ratepayers pay 40%. Let's bankrupt people. And I don't want to do that.
Right.
I think that's one of the great things of having you as our mayor, a lifelong Burbank resident. Everybody, you know, it is a requirement you live in Burbank to serve as a city council member. But you grew up literally in this city, not the same as every one of your fellow council members, but you know, literally where the dollar goes and so forth, and so forth, and how the budget works. So,
well, I'm going to come up with our next subject.
Sorry, Craig. One last humble brag.
Absolutely, go ahead.
One last humble brag. Please look at the reports. Please look at the reports from our last council meeting. I have it here. I don't know if you can see it as clearly. These are the electrical bill comparisons. I just want to remind folks that Burbank is right here. We are the second cheapest electrical bill. Riverside is the lowest. And I promise you that Riverside, Glendale, all of these utilities have rate hikes of their own coming soon. And let's look at water. That was electrical.
Okay.
Looking at water, we are the lowest of all of the cities here in the county. So I just want to remind folks that tidbit, because we really are trying to keep it that way too.
And this, if people want to dig down deep, you can go into last week's city council meeting and you can look at the video, and Joe the chief financial officer of Water and Power, broke all this down. You could see for yourself exactly the chart is. She didn't have this printed up by some PIO, in City Hall for us. It's available.
If you go to Burbank City's website and look under council meetings and agenda notes and look at May 20th, you can scroll down, find this. I want to say it was agenda item 8 or 9. You can look for it. It's on there. I would watch the YouTube video, quite frankly, because Joe and Mandeep do an excellent job of explaining things. And if you have questions after, give me a call. Give Mandeep a call.
All right. Well, we're going to move on now. And something happened to me, I should say my Burbank, which I've heard for a long time now. There's a lot of people very upset with how events in Burbank just don't happen. And we have the Road Kings car show coming up, and my Burbank has a booth there. And I was talking with the Road King people, and I said, I'd like to bring some shirts and hats and stuff to sell there also. He goes, yeah, you can do that, but I need a copy of your insurance policy. I go, a copy of my insurance policy? What do you mean? I've never had to bring one anywhere before. And he goes, well, the city of Burbank is requiring that you have $1 million of insurance to sell a hat or a shirt. And so I went out and got it. It cost me over $300, which I won't make that day. So I'm going to lose money. And then I've got my Burbank vendor's fee also for the day. So you're looking at close to $400. And so I'm talking with the guy with the Road Kings. I was saying, wow, I go, why would you? Because the city's required. They came out last year. Some people didn't have the right insurance. They fined us. They fined us a big amount. And the Road Kings is 100% nonprofit. All the money they make, that's their big thing every year. And all the money they make that I use, Boys and Girls Club, Home Again, it goes to all the Burbank nonprofits. And they said, well, we just had to give them less money to the nonprofits because the city of Burbank took a big fine from us. And I go, wow. He goes, and the future of our event is really in jeopardy right now because the city's making it hard for us to put this on. So my thing was, we can just, I'm going to lose some money on this, okay? And can I afford to do the future? I probably not. So I probably won't be involved. But if you lose the event, we've lost so many events. Now, we said earlier, the Burbank Parade might be coming back. But I know Holiday in the Park was struggling for a few years. I know there's a lot of, we used to have the 4th of July at Cambridge every year by the Burbank JCs. A great event. There used to be a lot of great events in the city, and more, they're all disappearing. Other cities can be able to do it still, but Burbank seems to having less and less experiences for the citizens as a whole, or, our people. Right. So I'm not putting you on the line on this because it's not your decision and everything else, but I just think down that it's something that the city needs to start thinking about is how do we help these nonprofits? How do we just help all these events to keep things happening in Burbank? I'm going to find, we have the Visit Burbank Street Festival this coming weekend. I'm going to find out if every one of those booths had to pay $1 million insurance policy to be out there. Because if not, why are we picking and choosing which events and who gets it and who doesn't get it? And so that kind of stuff bothers me, is the consistency also.
And I can tell you now, Craig, they did, because that is a blanket policy across the city. And again, it comes to some of these new mandates, new safety mandates for a lot of these events that we have. We have new insurance policies that we need to require vendors to get. And that's really hard. And I hear you, especially with our nonprofits, because the goal of what they're doing is community, which has been one of my biggest concerns. And I can tell you that, again, we sit in our Burbank bubble and we look at Burbank and say, it's costing us so much to do. I promise you that folks who are vendors at Ventura County Street Fair, folks who are vendors at a City of LA event are paying these exorbitant fees too. It's getting harder for everybody. So one of the things that I wanted to look at is how do we help out the right people to host these events, right? Really? And so one, I will tell you, I'm happy to continue talking with our parks department. And I did talk a little bit with them when it came to the Road King show. Continue talking with our community development department on ways we can start to sift out and support folks that are the nonprofits or how we can take on as a city and sponsor some of these events. I think Burbank on Parade, I think Holiday in the Park should be, and that's one council member's opinion, but I think they should be city-sponsored events. We should be really, really supporting these things and happening. I remember back in the day, the movies, they called the movies in the park, but they're at the old IKEA lot, right?
Right.
A lot of those events were so amazing for me as a kid. And I want kids to have that experience now. So one of the things I've been doing is really talking to our departments about how we can make these community events that the city is putting our own money forward. And I know that's a long-term discussion, and even though you're asking
talking budget and all that,
you asked me what I wish we could have included.
And as a vendor, I don't mind paying the vendor fee. I get that, but when you're looking at paying more money than you can possibly make, then at what point you're saying forget it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of that. You know, that was a big issue. I know last year for Pride, like Burbank Pride, they had that issue with many of their vendors who said, it's really hard for me to do it. And in talking to some of those vendors, you know, I kind of followed the money a little bit and watched, okay, well, did they go to do another Pride event in another city? They didn't. It's just getting hard across the board. But one of the things I put together in hopes of helping, and I know it's not a solution, but I hope it's one step to help, like you mentioned, some of these nonprofit folks who are really doing it for community with zero personal and
No
financial
salaries and
incentive, nothing. Is we did have our first iteration this year of my proposed community grant for community events.
Something that's needed to be done for a long time now, and something that you championed.
Thank you. I felt very strongly about that one. And actually, one of my reasons for doing that, and I know we're not there yet, and I'm getting ahead of myself in a few years, in a year. But one of the reasons I even put that grant forward was talking about Burbank on Parade. Ross and I have been talking about that for years. How do we bring it back? And I wanted a community grant out there that helped events like that to come back and helped our current events that are struggling to stay. And we had over 30-something applications for our first iteration. It's a pilot program. It's 2 years. And, you know, I had a great time explaining. I got a question from one of my colleagues about why we were doing this and whether or not the government should be funding these nonprofit events. And the way I see it again is this is not the government just funding nonprofit events. This is the government saying, hey, part of our job, because it's part of our goals, it's not just housing, it's not just water and power, it's also quality of life.
Quality of life, absolutely.
Part of our job is funding the
Well-being of
community
residents.
events. Exactly.
Well, people I don't think realize, turn on the TV. Where was it yesterday? A car drove through a festival
Liverpool.
somewhere. Where?
Liverpool.
Liverpool. Last week, a car drove through a parade, a marathon somewhere. Is happening more and more. And it's a sad state of how we have to look at things. But as a city, I know for Holiday in the Park, Burbank on Parade, safety is the number one thing. Being the chairman of large events like that, I think about it all the time. You know, we need to now use, some cities use sawhorses. Burbank, the traffic engineer and the traffic lieutenant has come up with these barricades that will prevent a car from going through. We have to use those. They cost a lot to be made, but they also are safe. You can drive a car at 70 miles an hour and not get through them. But the nice thing is your community grant will go toward paying for part of that. Burbank on Parade, we have found some money put away that will help pay for that. Holiday in the Park, again, the city co-sponsors and helps pay for that. So that's how we can still do these events. But it's tough. The city does make us. The city fees are one thing. The county fees, if you want to serve a cookie, and I will take for an example Porto's. Good old Betty Porto. Last year, she had to package everything that she gave away as a requirement of the LA County Health Department, which cost her, on top of making the product and giving it away, she had to put what the contents was. You can't sell now homemade brownies. You can't, there's so many restrictions.
I love brownies.
But I get, you think about it, you have 40,000 people and people are eating things. You don't want everybody to get sick.
No.
Right.
No, I mean, that's our society today. Our society is who's the next crazy guy going to be? We all get that. So, I don't think anybody wants a free ride either.
Right.
But I think all we want is help and assistance and knowing we're not fighting the system, we're working with the system.
The hardest part of those insurance costs you mentioned, though, and I think that's across the board. I think one of the themes I've seen, if you ask me right now, what's the worst thing you've seen working government? Insurance. It's awful right now. Be it home insurance, be it apartment insurance, be it car insurance, medical insurance.
$300 for a one-day policy?
Think about that. That's insane.
Killing me.
And that's the part where it gets really hard. And we've sent letters to our insurance commissioner saying, like, this is out of hand. I do think it's incredible price gouging when it comes to insurance. And honestly, it would be something that I know I can't do anything about at the local level, but man, if I ever got up higher, that's something I would want to tackle because it's just predatory in every vein.
Well, it's funny. I looked back again from the former Burbank on Parade when they did it down Olive many years ago. The state makes mandates. You can't use A. Fails at A.
Yeah.
Because it'll go down the sewer and it'll clog up the sewer. You can't run water down the sewer over so many gallons. And it's a state requirement. So the city has to, abide by those things. All these little tiny things that people have no clue on how, that to put on an event of all these things that you have to take into consideration.
It all costs money.
Yep.
Like I said, I know it's not the solution, but for folks who are wondering about the community grant, we did put $50K aside for this pilot for the first year, and we're going to do it again next year.
Let's get the community grant. So, my soapbox, I'm off it now. I'm back down regular size here. Let's talk about the community grants. Let's talk about, who's getting what and what the whole is it going.
So it was really tough for our city because, of course, we got the applications, which I thought we would. I know there were some folks who were skeptical saying, I don't know, we'll see. And I was like, I promise you, people are out there who want to do good in the community. And we had applications from a lot of different groups, like Zonta put in their application, BTAC, all our normal nonprofits, and some new folks, which was really exciting to see. Some folks who have ideas and want to do good in Burbank. We couldn't pick everybody. And the way we did it, which I think was the best way, and if you watch last week's council meeting, you'll also get to see a little bit of our discussion on this, was we had a committee made up of staff from a few of the different departments that would interact. So CDD, Parks and Rec, the city manager's office. And these are just staff members. These are not council members. They don't have a vested interest. They're not, members of an organization. I'm very openly a member of Zonta myself. It would have been really unfair to have me on there, right? And so it was great to have that group really sit there and look at each application and then graded each of them on feasibility, on their budget, on their actual plan, on benefit to the community, and also on how open it was to the public. For example, if you asked for money for a gala, that was denied because you're asking for a more private function. It's not necessarily a benefit to the community. If you were asking for something political or religious, again, community event that's open for everybody, you didn't get the funding. So one of the things I really appreciated is in this May 20th meeting from, was that last week? My gosh.
Last week.
My goodness, I feel like the time is, I feel like it was last year.
How busy you are, though.
But from that meeting, our staff, Catherine Labrato, really breaks it down for everybody on the criteria on each thing that was judged for the applicants. And I think we learned lessons too, right? In how we want to market this and how we want to make sure folks know what we mean by a community event, an open public event, right? And so we set our criteria. And what I really appreciated was, one of our council members brought up an organization that didn't get funded. And he said, I'd love to see this funded. And we did have a talk as a council and saying, we're not going to make any changes because that would be unfair and bringing our own bias into this, which is fair. And we also agreed that our staff would be available to have at least a 20-minute discussion with any applicant that didn't get a grant about why they didn't get funded, so that next year they can apply with a project that will get funded. And I think that's an invaluable resource. When do you apply for a grant as a nonprofit? As somebody who's worked at a 501c3, I have never had a grant application where I apply, I don't get it, and I don't just get a letter that says, "See ya, thanks." Nowhere have I gotten, "We'll sit down with you for a few minutes and explain to you how you can make the application better for next year." So if you're listening out there and if you applied and you didn't get it and you're a little disappointed, or if you didn't apply and you're thinking of applying, do call our city staff or city manager's office and talk with our staff about what the criteria is and what you can do to strengthen your application and make it better for next year. We have an extra $5,000 that we didn't use this year for next year because we hope we can fund even more projects.
Well, it was quite interesting because I watched this one very closely because of Magnolia Park, Burbank on Parade, several things. And I'm glad you stood up for a couple. When you are giving money out, if it's CBDG funds, if it's a grant, community grants, I will tell you, people come out of the woodwork. Don't take that personal, folks. But people I find come up to that dais. And I know most organizations in the city quite well. One of the things on your community grants were you need to be a 501c3, not a 501c6, 501c whatever. There are requirements. And that's why I know for a fact, Magnolia Park, we didn't apply because I did the homework. We did the homework and asked. And it says right on there, you got to be a 501c. I didn't want to take your time. And I would think a city staffer would have caught that real quick anyway. Come August, we will be, but it's funny. There's some requirements, but people come out of the woodwork, and it's nice to see that the city is trying to work with these organizations. It's not that we don't want to do events. Burbank is one city that, we want to, it's real important having community, but that you set the goals. And here's a perfect proof that I think you gave away $45,000. Now, folks, that doesn't come out, and that's not because they're raising your power bill. That's money that Burbank has had put away in different funds that things have changed, and that's what they're based on.
Well, but also
very separate.
I think tax money, not tax money per se, but city funds should be used for the well-being of the community. And I really believe that's part of the whole process is, we got to have the cops, the firemen, all those things. We also have to have the community. We have to still be who we are and talk to your neighbor and all those things too.
One of the things I tell people, and that's why my priorities when I ran for office were in that order. My first one was public safety, because if you don't have fire, PD, and let's say you own a utility, those three things are not good and well-funded. You're not running the city. End of story. My second thing was housing and homelessness, because that's our job as a city to make sure that we're housing folks, that we have a sustainable place to live. And then quality of life was on there, because I do also think, I know it's not the priority. I know, sorry, Ross, and sorry, me, but Burbank on Parade is maybe not as important as keeping the lights on. But it's still important. People live in a community because they care about the businesses that are next to them. They care about the events that are happening, and they care that they're safe. And all three of those things are really important.
And I don't think sometimes it's always about giving money. It's just about making it easier for them to have their events.
Exactly.
It's streamlining things. It's making sure that, maybe such fees aren't required and things like that. So there's a lot of things they can do besides just giving away money that makes the event more, go on easier.
And like I said, it's one of our solutions. I'm hoping to work with city staff down the road to find a way to lighten some of these fees. And I understand that some of them, it's a pipe dream because they're going to tell me well, we can't. I know we've had some events where they're like, well, can you just not charge us for PD? You can say no, because I'm not going to tell PD you're not getting paid for these hours, right?
Well, I think, aren't you considering from private security now for?
Yeah, we were told by, when they came out, we don't have to have Burbank Police Department.
Yeah.
We can hire event staff security. But then again, you have to weigh the difference of armed, non-armed, what Burbank PD gets paid versus a private, all those things you need to waive. Again, liability.
And I
and
will
so
say that's
forth.
a great example of also our staff wants to work with you. Our city staff, I've seen them really finagle things and try to make it as affordable as possible for events. There are sometimes when folks come to us with very grand ideas, like, I want to shut down all of McCambridge Park. And we're like, this is what it would cost you and us and the folks around in that area. Why don't we do it here instead? And really, that's a conversation between the fire chief, PD chief, Parks and Rec, community development, and all these folks are eager to really work with folks to make it easier because we know it can be costly.
Well, I'll throw some numbers out because I know them quite well. To close Magnolia Boulevard is $40,000. I mean, to make it safe. That doesn't count the police officers out there to work. And for Holiday in the Park last year, for law enforcement protection and everything they did, $22,000. Now, there you go, $60,000. The event cost us $112,000 to put on. Think about it. That money just doesn't grow on a tree in Magnolia Park because I keep looking for that tree. But
let me know when you find it.
But you got to make stuff safe. And then when you bring that many people together, do you have enough law enforcement and fire, God forbid something happen, that we can handle the situation? Those are all things you have to take into consideration. So that brings up the next thing on our list is July 4th. Now, a lot of people don't understand that the storms that we had, first the windstorm that destroyed not only, I think, 19 trees I heard up at Starlight Bowl, but also took off the roof, literally the highest building in the city, literally blew off the roof. And then a week later, you have torrential rainstorm that the rain had no roof stopping it. So the water got into the dressing rooms. That building is very old. People go to the summer concert series every year. Well, that's why they're not having it. So they've gone to Plan B. Burbank didn't say we're not doing anything. Go pound sand. Our Parks Department came up with, let's do something different. And I believe that's what they're planning is some community events in the different parks. People don't understand 5,000 people up at the bowl. You can't just put that into a neighborhood park and say people go have fun. So I know they've taken that into consideration. I hear there's going to be a drone show that will be available to be seen from McCambridge Park, the Burbank High football and baseball fields, the parking structures at the mall. That's just one event in the evening. There's going to be other things at our Parks Department, who is celebrating
100 years.
100 years of playing around.
They're
So
very excited, and they have, if you're interested, they have a lot of merch celebrating 100 years of
insurance policies on
Parks and
merch.
Rec. But yeah, the 4th of July, listen, I get it. I've seen the comments on Facebook. Folks are very sad that we're not having our fireworks show. If you ask me, thinking from a government and community standpoint, on the one hand, there's nowhere to do it, given the Starlight Bowl, and really, we rarely say in government there was substantial damage. This was substantial damage. Like it is unusable. And I'm glad our city manager and the council was very proactive in thinking, listen, we already have a restoration plan down the road. Let's just speed it up. Instead of saying we're going to do some quick repairs, let's just make this really, really a state-of-the-art
way, though. That's something that was kicked down the road for how many 30 years because the Starlight Bowl was antiquated and just absolutely.
Well, you think of handy capable.
Yeah.
How would you get up there?
You'd carry me. And once again, though, we didn't do anything to get it up to standards, and then this happens, and now, there we go. That's something that happened to Olive Park when they lost the grandstands.
Right.
We never kept it up. The earthquake happened. We didn't fix it and just tore it down. Never goes a piece of history again.
And I'm glad we've decided, okay, instead of we're going to do some minor repairs here and there and see if we can have the shows in this, we're doing the whole thing. We're speeding it up. So we're doing it now.
You know how I feel about it. I think it's a huge gem for our city. I think it's a
really
great thing to have. And you look at what the Greek Theater and the Henry Ford, all these theaters have. and we don't have it here because we're garage bands. It could be so much more here.
And that's the goal. That's the goal. Like if we're going to renovate it, if we're going to bring it back to speed, let's really do a mass scale renovation
I
here.
agree.
And so that's one half of it. The other half is, look, it's not lost on me. Look at what we just had with these fires. Fireworks are really dangerous. And I know Ross loves to remind people of this, and I appreciate you for it, Ross. Fireworks are illegal in the city of Burbank, folks.
My next item on my list here is going to take. I don't care if it says safe and sane. Being a photographer in this community for the last 50 years, I have pictures of people with fingers blowing off, kids that have taken a sparkler and twirled it and got sparks in their eye. I have seen it personally. Safe and sane? No. They're illegal in the city of Burbank, and that means all fireworks, even if they say safe and sane, and you can buy them in Pacoima, don't bring them into city because you can be cited.
They're unsafe. They're insane.
And let me tell you, I can tell you there are a few times when the fire chief's heart rate is through the roof. The 4th of July is one of those days. And it is the most emergency room calls. It is the most fire calls. And it's just detrimental to our health and safety, along with all the smoke that's left over. So it is something we have to really rethink. I know folks love.
I don't think people remember, this might be before you were born, Madam Mayor, that back, I can't tell you the exact year, I was on the July 4th committee, and because the humidity rate was so low, they canceled having a fireworks show up at Starlight Bowl, and they moved it to John Burroughs High School.
Well, I think 20 years ago. That was that long.
No, I was around. I was a kid, but I was around. I remember this.
But I remember being on the committee, and the problem was, I remember they hired Pyro Spectacular, who does a show every year, and they shot him off from the baseball field. But still, you can't tell an Ember personally where to go and where not to go. And the neighbors, the dogs, the complaints, yes, it was a great July 4th activity, but you know what? Fireworks is not meant to be put at a stadium like Burroughs.
No.
Not in a residential zone and so forth. So that's why if people are thinking, well, why don't you just move it here or move it there? Nowadays, with the fires that we experienced, there's no show in Pasadena this year, folks. You want to know why? Because
Santa Monica last year had their first drone show, and I got to tell you, Santa Monica was one of the last safe, quote unquote, places to do this, because they literally did it at the edge of the beach. Like, where are those embers gonna fall? And even then, for them, it was an air quality issue. Folks were really breathing in the hazardous air. So I will say, I don't have all the details for the event and the drone show, but our next show, stay tuned, because I will have more details then.
Okay. Well, I will say this, my neighbors here will kill me when I say this. If you want to watch a good fireworks show, I just go to my backyard and watch Lakeside Golf Course. They launch a huge show every year. And so streets around here get crowded with people coming to watch the show here, but you can see it right here from the old Fluke Lake area at Lakeside. So sorry about that, neighbors.
But if you want to see a July 4th parade, there's probably the top parade in all over, and it has gone down the Media District area. Where's the parade that goes down this street every year? Your July 4th parade.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
The parade that you guys do down your street?
Oh, our parade. Every year we do
how many years?
15 now. We do a parade down our street from the corner to the end. They turn around, they go back to the corner. That's a parade every year. We've had the Howard, Ron and Clint Howard as mascot, master ceremonies or whatever, as we've had all sorts of people on our one block parade. So you are more than welcome to come and participate if you'd like to, but you're going to be tied up this
July 4th. She is.
Yeah, I get a little tied. I'll get you next year.
Hopefully we're still running around on July 4th. Well, I'm not ready yet, but
we can get your golf cart to come up and down, back and forth.
I would love that. I'd love to come down for the parade. My doctor says I should keep walking.
Oh, there you go.
So I will be waddling.
It's a full 2 blocks. One up, one down.
if I can't make it 2 blocks by then, then things are not looking good. So I'm hoping I'll be fully available to do that. It'll be fun. I don't know.
On it every year and put it on the thing. And
you give me a hot dog and I'm good to go. I am good to go. And I got to tell you, Ross, when people talk about July 4th, I don't know. That's what I'm looking forward to. I want a good hamburger and a good hot dog. That's my July 4th.
Well, we used to have the JCs years ago do that thing in McCambridge. Yes, higher McCambridge Park. Rides, everything. Carnival thing. It was a great event every year. And
that's where the original, people don't know, many years after the war, Burbank on Parade started on Glen Oak.
Yeah.
Then they moved it to 3rd Street, and they did it at the same time that the circus was in town, Circus Vargas, because we got llamas and elephants and all sorts of animals, and we went from about Cypress to the park.
Yep.
And then the park was closed, Andover and Amherst. We had city trucks set up. There was a big festival in McCambridge Park. We had a Burbank Neighborhood Radio Watch. We were set up out there and giving crime prevention tips for many years.
I got to tell you, Ross, as a marching band kid, it was no easy feat marching behind the llamas and what they leave behind. It's worse than horses.
I will keep that in mind. I will keep that in mind when we're talking about Burbank on Parade. People, you've heard it from my mouth, and I've seen the paperwork going through the city. We are going to have a parade in 2026.
We will.
Right. You have the mayor and my's commitment. It's going to be a lot of planning. It might be a bit different. It won't be on Olive. We're looking at different situations, but you know what? We're going to bring Burbank on Parade back to Burbank.
We are bringing it back.
Okay. Well, there's been a long show, and so at the end of every show, we have one thing and one thing only. We always say, what is on the mayor's mind?
Besides diapers.
So we will give you the floor, and any subject you want to talk about, the floor is yours.
Let's see. What is on my mind? They do have some announcements from things that are.
Don't we have that announcement? The company or
there we go. There we fire news one. There we go. That's the one with the teletype. Oh, that's right. That's the teletype going right now, son.
Oh, right. So I do have two fun resource things that are happening. So our Downtown Burbank Summer Arts Festival, which we alluded to a little bit, is happening May 31st and June 1st from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. in downtown Burbank. It'll be fun, a relaxing event for families, goes down the street and talking about community. I think that those are the things, right? And then the other thing we have is more of a resource fair on Saturday, May 31st from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at George's A Park. Home Again LA is hosting the Community Resource Fair. We'll have organizations from across the region that are going to provide essential resources about housing, financial literacy, employment, and more. If you want more info, you can go to homeagainla.org or you can call them at 818-562-7778. And those are my two event things that are coming up. Let's see what else
Well, while you're looking through your notes here, Mayor, I'll do a little ad lib. Last week, you and I attended Home LA's gala, and it was at Radford Studios. They raised $200,000, I believe, for our homeless programs and so forth. And it was a very great atmosphere. It was little weather we weren't sure if it was going to rain or miss, but we were lucky. It was a great night. They had a great band. The food was plenty of food. They had ice cream. They had raffles you can do, and they raised $200,000. This community fair that Albert Hernandez and Home LA is doing, again, folks, take advantage of Home LA. They're a great resource center. If you know somebody that's having problems, don't be embarrassed. They deal with this every single day. We're in a situation now with the studios and people not working. Hopefully that'll change real soon. But if you are having problems, stop by the park. Olive Rack, very convenient.
And they have a lot of county-wide resources too. So if even if you're not unhoused or You're not at risk of becoming unhoused. If money's tight, there's economic resources out there, financial literacy resources. A lot of times it's just learning how to save some money. As somebody who used to work as a homeless services provider, that's one of the main issues we see with homelessness. Sometimes you fall into debt and one thing snowballs into another, and it's really helpful to talk to some of these organizations and resources. And I do have to say, Home Again LA is wonderful. I had the pleasure of working with them, both in my capacity in the government side and also as a provider, and they were great to work with.
Fantastic.
My last thing that's on my mind, last thing,
No problem.
is this one's more of a fun fact. We do have a couple of fun projects going on right now. I think we always talk about capital improvements and our sidewalks and the reservoir and all these things. If you're driving around Burbank, pardon our dust, we are working on a restoration of our City Hall fountain. So you will see that up and running soon with recycled water by the end of the summer. By the time I have a new addition to my family, that fountain should be ready to go.
Well, you know what? I'll buy the soap. Oh, no, I'm kidding.
I say be careful, because when they went to fix the elevator on the Olive Water Pass, it was supposed to be done by April, and now we're in June, and it's.
I've been guaranteed, and you know what? I will say, I never say never until I see the fence come up and people out there.
Yep.
I've driven by City Hall many times this last week, and our staff is on it.
I will say this is the first time I was driving up Olive, which I do 10 times a day. This is the first time I've seen a project like that, the fountain, fence around it, Andy Gump out there for the employees. People don't understand the water system, the water lines are being replaced. That's a major project. The lines that go under the
I'm glad they're doing it too, because that's City Hall. And
it's a tricky one because, it's for two reasons. It's a historical site, so we can't tamper too much, but also we can't use, it would be, again, for all the reasons we talked about today, it would be irresponsible of us to use regular water. We have to use recycled water at this point. And then the other project we have going on is the plane.
F-106.
Yes.
That's right. That poor guy in that plane, he sure needs a bathroom break. He's been in that plane for 30 years, hasn't he?
And he needs
Dan Remy.
And again, they've sanded it down. They have it masked off again. They put the fence around it to protect so they can work out there. We remember when that was put in.
Yeah, wasn't that a Dan Remy thing?
Yeah, that was, Lockheed and so forth. And people thought Lockheed left, take your airplane with you. But people still live here that worked on that plane.
And then let me tell you, to Craig's point, man, that poor guy needs a break.
Needs a break up there.
Ross, if you think you didn't get time in makeup today, he certainly didn't get time in makeup. He needs his eyes restored, everything. So stay tuned to see.
Raw, huh? He looks sharp. I think.
Yes.
Like I say, I drive by there every day. These are things. Yes, it did cost $250,000 to restore it, but you're not going up there with putting just any type of coat of paint on it. It's got to last for years, and it's out there in the sun, the light, everything. They're doing it right. And again, these are major projects, which I guess I saw at your last council meeting. You were proud to have Ken Berkman get up, and people can go online and look at all these major projects that the city's doing to keep the status of it.
And we will have a lot of pardon our dust in the future because, and it's good, right? It's good things that we see. We see a restoration to the park itself. We see a restoration for our civic center. And those are all things for the community, for the benefit of our community.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've come to the end. So for Mayor Nikki Perez, and of course for Ross Benson.
There we go. When I said tally-ho, we did go.
There we go. This is Craig Sheridan once again saying thank you for watching. We'll catch you again next month, and hopefully the mayor will be able to do one more show before the big day comes. So
thank you, everybody.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching our My Burbank video. Please consider a channel membership to support us, or head over to our merch store where you can pick up some great items. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the latest videos. And please don't forget to hit that like button.